thank you for coming to the Raleigh Museum tonight and not only sharing some observations of the new album, but also allowing us a chance to hear something.
My pleasure. You know, there are very few outlets right now. We show this record out, so thank you so much. We appreciate that.
You know, when I think of the record, following your career, I've been with the Grammys and your breakout days and following the albums that you've released, there's been a progression of really interesting things that you have done. This record is interesting. I've spent the last 3 or 4 days listening to it. I'm curious where the overall feel and the overall sound comes from, and I'm wondering what Don was, the producer. Yeah. Great producer.
Oh well, I think that Born and Raised is probably a bit of a reboot. I don't think that I had a next step in mind. This thing that happens like where you start out in high school and you say, "This is my plan." You get out of high school and you say, "I'm doing the plan." No one thinks it's going to work. It's going to work. You become sort of very masterminded with the plan. And interestingly enough, you don't really have a dream for like record 4 or 5. Kind of vision sort of runs dry after a while. You don't lay in bed as a kid thinking about how you're going to progress to your fifth record. So I think that thread that began at Room for Squares and went through Continuum and Battle Studies, I realized I don't have a next step for this. And I didn't have a next step for a lot of things in my life. I had really gone, used all the runway and then some, and it took me a minute to go, oh, idiot, like, you don't know what you're doing. And it was really interesting to go back and say, okay, this is sort of a reboot of all of the music that I love, or the music that I've come to love since I made my last record. I just didn't like the idea of being seen as an artist already out at sea, just doing his thing. And somewhere in the middle of the Battle Studies tour, there was this flash moment where I just was listening to Bob Dylan music, and I never had this. It's like a plane landing on an aircraft carrier. I never caught the hook on Bob Dylan. Just never caught the hook until get ready if you like metaphor. And one day, that's the thing about great music and great musicians. They're waiting for you. You may not love them at one point, but one day, given what happens in your life, they're waiting in the wings to come swoop you up. And all of a sudden, given everything in your life and all the music you've digested and all the music you've created, all of a sudden something else comes in and you feel like a kid again. And I felt like a kid again. And I was on a tour that I probably didn't love being on. I mean, I needed to go home. I needed to go home.
The previous tour?
Yeah, around the time of the Battle Studies tour, I needed to go home. And I understand. If you track it, just something like that. It just makes sense. You need to go home. You got to reset. And I remember laying in my bed and listening to this music and going, why is the vital part of my career have to be over if it's not the beginning part? You know what I mean? Like, why do I have to make my 6th record? Like, why can't I walk McDougal Street with a guitar? Why can't I have the beginning? I want the beginning back. I hate this middle stuff, you know. And I got the beginning back. I had to wait till the end of the tour. And I went to Electric Lady Studios almost immediately. I didn't know it was going to be almost immediately. I thought I needed more time to sort of like do nothing, but I don't do nothing well. So I booked studio time and I said, we're gonna buy Electric Lady for a year. We're gonna lock it out. And we locked out Electric Lady from October until June. I was in there every day.
And was Don with you?
Don jumped on. Well, you know, this is how it links into Don. Is when I started writing these songs, and they were written in complete silence. They were written in complete. I was not a famous person writing his next record. I was letting the world forget about it, and I needed to do it. And I let everything sort of drift by me, which is a very scary thing to do. It's a weird. I'll never be able to fully explain what it feels like to say, even though all of this feels terrible, I have to say goodbye to it, but I'll miss it in a weird sort of Stockholm syndrome thing. And I said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to become irrelevant. I'm going to basically flatline and then restart my life.
Was it as much a reboot emotionally as it was musically?
Yeah, I had lived every dream I had, but I started faking new dreams on the spot. It's very dangerous. And I knew what I had hit the wall. I had hit the wall. I knew what I was doing for a very long time. And then when I didn't know what I was doing, I never admitted it. And up until that point, overthinking it was a really smart idea. It got me out of holes. It got me out of situations. It got me, people would go, what? Ah! And after what? And I said, da-da-da. They went, what? And I went, I can get out of this. Da-da-da. They went, huh? And I was like, hit the wall. And I had this violent crash into adulthood. And I thought, well, all right, well, I had nothing to do for a while. Let me sort of refocus all of the energy. Let's go back to what we love doing. Let's just go back to writing songs. And we had these, I had set forward these rules. No drum machines, no easy way out, no loops, nothing that you can fool yourself into thinking sounds good before you've written the note. Because you can do this. You can go in the studio and you can say, I have a song idea. I think as an artist you become, you're still asking other people to join you in the studio and give up their day. So they go, okay, we'll make Bear wants to do something. And you get in there and you go, it's very scary. These people have given up their day for you. And if you don't have an idea, sometimes, instead of exploring that idea, you just kind of get scared and you want to stay close to what someone else isn't going to think is weird. So you're like, let's load up a beat. We're all sitting here. You're like, yeah, it's something. It's nothing. So the rule was no drum machines, no humming or gibberish of it doesn't write a song. I bought a typewriter. I bought a typewriter. They're really cheap, but they're really hard to find. They're like $100. And I started typing 3 or 4 pages a night. That was my rule. You don't come in the studio and sing something. Even if it's terrible, sing it. Just admit to yourself however you feel. And before long, I had these pages, and I remember one of them was I remember sitting at my counter writing, close your eyes and clone yourself, build your heart and army. And I went, okay, I don't know that I would have written that if I misspelled clone and a red line came out of me. And I went, oh, wait. Already I'd say claim, clone. And then I'd say, what was I thinking about again? And I go, never mind. And I'd do something else. So it was very connected. And anyway, I had a beautiful, beautiful time making the record. Beautiful experience where I was left alone, forgotten about. There was nobody waiting outside anywhere. And it ended up being a very powerful thing and something I'll probably keep doing for a long time.
The idea of bringing a typewriter is really cool. And you mentioned Dylan before, a great typewriter Dylan story at Big Pink, when the band used to be Bob Dylan's band before they were called the band. They were called the Hawks. They lived up in New York State. And Robbie Robertson told me how they would leave a typewriter on the kitchen table. And as people came in, they would just sit and type a line or two and move on, go to the bathroom or whatever you're going to do, come back, type another line. And everyone would contribute to, necessarily turning into songs, but they were ideas. And people would think, well, that's a really cool
I've saved some. And the thing is, you can't see what you're typing, so it's the most honest expression ever. You don't see back what you're writing, and you start getting extremely honest. You start confessing that it's a typewriter.
Well, the presence of Don was one of the great producers.
Fantastic.
Really great guy. We had the opportunity to work with him at the White House on the Blue Show with Mick Jagger. So fantastic. Telling me his interest in jazz and everything. But he is somebody who is so kind of like T-Bone Burnett, I think, who has a very strong vision of what good music sounds like. How much of a role does he play in the actual articulation of the album?
Huge. I mean, Don is like the oracle. You can check it against him. You're checking it against the real thing. You can always go to him and say, is this the real thing? And did those guys do that? Or do you buy this? And if he bought it, it was cool. I mean, there was more times with him telling me that it was okay when I didn't think it was, than it was him telling me it wasn't what I thought it was. Which, for me, is really powerful. I need that. I need someone to say, I need someone to say, like, what else are you going for? And there were several times to say, what else are you trying to get? And I say, I guess I'm not chasing a sound, I'm chasing a feeling. And we already have a sound. Who needs to feel it? Right? That's tricky. That's tricky. And then there were other times, which is the great part of working with another producer, is that I'd go, let me just keep trying, let me just keep trying, let me just keep trying, let me just keep trying. And I would come up with something better. But the point there is that you have someone else to hold the rope. There's someone else to kind of let you go a little deeper down into the cave, but they can always pull you out. I think if I were doing it without him, I would have been in many a flat spin, many a night. But having him there to sort of just check everything again. You could even just having him say, give it an hour. Go look for an hour. At least that hour was spent purely exploring, not half exploring, half saying, I gotta get out. These people just want to go home. I mean, I really do feel that way. Like, these people probably are going to want to go home. I'm such a people pleaser, I'm trying to make the engineer enjoy the music. If I do enough writing that doesn't come out, I go like, oh, this guy probably makes his work.
You know, when you said before, I was just thinking here, if I hadn't heard the album, and you said you were going back and you were rebooting, I would have thought that would have meant going back to the blues. That's one of the great places to reboot, especially with guitar players like yourself.
I think I've done it.
You've done that, yeah.
I had done it. You know, sometimes I feel bad that I haven't listened to a Stevie Ray Vaughan record in a while. But then I realized, like, no, he'd be all right. That's always in there, you know. I just think that's the greatest thing about music. I mean, being born in this time, there's more music that's already been made than we'll ever get to. So you don't just have to sit in front of the television or the radio to get what's coming at you. You can take some of that. You can also go back and find new things. I mean, to realize that like all things must pass. It's been around since my birth and before, but I didn't get to it until 2007. Wow, that's really exciting. Yeah. What else is out there that I'm not looking at because I haven't heard before? It never came around. And that's really cool. That's really cool. I've never been shy about saying, I heard this record and I want to explore what I might be able to do with that sound. No doubt that I would love to write a song because of Heart of Gold, but not in its shadow. I'd love to write music because of a song. Maybe selfishly, I'd like to have that same feeling in something that I'm playing. I think that's okay. I think maybe say, I'd like one too. You just have to kind of go about it in a really authentic, loyal way with who you are.
You mentioned Heart of Gold, and of course, Neil Young's Heart of Gold. Yeah. I can hear elements of Harvest and Heart of Gold. And were you listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that stuff swooped in and kind of just put its arms around it. That's
the way you use a moniker in there.
Yeah, I learned harmonicas. I'm so selfish. I learned harmonicas too.
So you didn't have to play harmonica before?
No, I've never played it before. No, but I'm the kind of guy I'm always going to need new colors to paint with, and it makes it makes it difficult on I think like a promotional or whatever, like commercial side, because you're not really quite sure what another of my records is going to sound like. So it's kind of like starting over again with an artist. It's not like you can just put the next record out by me and people go, oh, that's Mayer, cool. Right? I like being sort of like the author of many different types of books, but the tone of my writing is kind of really different. But I would never
risky though, commercially though, isn't it? I mean, you do that and you have a big seller, which you've had a number of.
What's the alternative?
Right.
What's the alternative? To
stale and ultimately irrelevant, I guess.
Yes, ultimately. Even if you get away with it for a couple of records, and everybody, you have a choice. You can either decide to move on gracefully before anybody asks you, or say the only way I'm going to identify with myself is if the numbers look the same. And honestly, I hope I'm not waiting it to sound like one way is better than the other, because it's human choice. It's scary as hell. I will tell you, like, everybody, especially not touring, not really doing a bunch of promotion, there are daily jitters, daily conversations. People are really out of sorts because it just comes to, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, I am too, just comes down to whether or not people like it. people need it, you know, and so that's scary sometimes. You don't have the accompanying busy work, or that's the idea you can ease your mind by saying, well, we did a lot for this record. It's got it, you know, even if it doesn't do well, right? All I can do, I want to be here for a long time, and I want to be whatever my age and my lineage and my experiences tell me that I should be. And that means right now not being in the top 10 or 20 of adult AC, but hoping that I transition to just a more authentic place, or not a more authentic place, but just always be in an authentic place. And I mean, how could you listen to Shadow Days, which I love, and I usually get very distrusting of my singles by this point, and I play it again, I'm like, it's beautiful music, you know? Right. But how can you listen to the radio? And I'm not disparaging the radio. I'm just saying I should get out of the way, let other people do this for a while, or maybe forever. But how can you listen to the radio for an hour and then think that Shadow Days has a fighting chance? It doesn't. But it's not supposed to go there. I did that. And I think you have to grow old gracefully, and I think my fans will follow, because they're growing old too.
The worst thing is, a guy who's 51 years old trying to write for 18-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it at 30. You can get away with it.
Maybe
sort of
30,
maybe
but
35,
yeah,
40. I could probably do a couple records. But then you find yourself, you go, oh, I didn't do the required work that I needed to do a couple years ago, and now I can't find the next step. Right? So I've always, well, most always been kind of pure at heart as a musician, and I'm excited to just go down the line the way I'm supposed to go down the line. You know?
Did you have fun making the video?
Such a good time.
Yeah, like a major road trip to the South West.
I'm over Glam Squad and tables with red vines and cookies and like a bunch of people who were just like there. So I just knew the song felt really like open, very just like oxygen. You know? It was for me, you know. And I thought treatment was like, let's just be real about it. And like, let's just go out in beautiful open spaces. And I drove from Los Angeles, well, out to Montana where I live now. So I went from LA to Monument Valley.
Yeah, I saw that.
I went from Monument Valley to Jackson Hole. Went from Jackson Hole to where I live out in the middle of nowhere. So that's a real trip. That's really my truck. That's really my clothes. That's really my camera. And that's just me, just living. And I think, well, there's no lasers and stuff, and it's not going to get, the billion views. I'm not interested in things. I'm not interested, I'm not interested anymore in the number of views. I'm not interested in the span as much as the depth.
The quality.
That's it, man. You know, I'd rather have 1/10 as many people buying my records who feel 10 times more than anyone else does. I'm absolutely cool to go that direction. And so I just want to make something that's sort of organic and beautiful, just very true to the record, which is organic. But that's right. This was the first time I kind of saw it since saying, okay, you know, put that out. There's an honesty in it. I mean, we really went on that trip. And the video production guys have never gone on like 10-hour drags, which I did. So I was like, guys, we've got to get back in the car. Like, we can't shoot here for another hour. We've got to get back in the car. And so we really lived on coffee and like, you know A&W sold food? They do.
Did you just jump into the music store there?
Really jumped into the music store. It was such a great experience.
Where was that? In Idaho?
It was in Idaho Falls. Idaho Falls, yeah. So it was just a beautiful, real thing. And I think that right now, I'm still always a strategist. So I think maybe people want to see beautiful, real things from it. You know, even if it's not as, there's plenty of play. I just want to be a part of someone's life. I don't want to own them every day. I think this kind of idea of world domination only works for 3 people for a year each. And so, I don't know, maybe you're laughing when it's true. I don't know. I'm cool with being a piece of someone's music collection. I don't need to be in their world to be 24 hours.
Piece of someone's music collection.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's take a listen. You will. Okay. So, Josh, why don't you cue up? You know what? I'm going to ask you to start with track 2, The Age of Worry. That's my favorite track.
Let's listen to the whole track, because I know these people have listened like the first 90 seconds.
Woo!
You gotta listen to the whole track. I mean, I have such great fans that they listen to the first 90 seconds on iTunes over
Great instrumentation. Tell me about how the instrumentation occurred.
It's so funny, I was just listening to it, and every measure that goes by, it's like a SoundCloud thing where, like, there's like certain waveforms that have a little thing on it, and it goes, I remember when I took a walk to buy that guitar, I don't believe this street or something. So there's all these moments going by that are so lovely, and they disappear. Sadly, they disappear in a couple of years. And I just heard Continue Back on the plane yesterday, and I was like, I don't really remember every impetus for this, but it's all that's left is the music, which is beautiful. But for a moment, you remember, like, I mean, those cymbals. I mean, Aaron Sterling, who plays the drums on 11 of the 12 tracks, he and I had the experience of he's on one side of the studio and I'm on the other side of the studio. He's going, and we're looking at each other having a blast. You know, it's like, and I said going into this record, I just want to cook it with love. Like, I just want everyone in it to just be so loving. So that, it was just, I think I started playing the kick drum when I wrote the demo. Ooh, bam, just, that was like maybe the third song I wrote. And those were all sort of just a list of things I just wanted to sort of soothe myself and other people with. Just I remember just gesturing while I was singing it. Just to sort of like, almost like a ring move, a circus.
Yeah.
Just sort of like everybody's okay. It's okay. You didn't go to the gym today. You know, the big deal is that you told yourself that you had to. That was the big deal, was that somewhere without knowing it, you signed a contract that you had to or else. And that's a really weird place to be in. There's so much pressure, and it was just like, give your heart that you're allowed to do it, or like, you know, I can't remember the lyrics unless I try to think of it word, I guess. Just all these, really what it is a series of permissions. Just a series of permissions. And then also it just became this gigantic sea shanty.
Yeah.
Really large kind of sea spray. Like,
little Irish feel to it.
Yeah, this picturesque thing of, you know, sea spray. And it's just telling someone, like, it's all right. Like, just,
Talk about how you go about writing songs. I mean, you know, obviously there's lots of ways in which you write songs, but just to get a sense, is it spontaneous for you? Is it kind of wakes up in the middle of the night thing, or is it very
sometimes.
disciplined?
You know, I used to think it was all spontaneous before I realized that those things that I sang on the spot were actually things that I had tried in other songs. I don't think it's as on the spot as I think it is, but there have definitely been moments, many moments on this record where I was just completely not privy to why I would be singing that melody, which is the joy of being a musician. You can sing something you never thought you'd hear. It's beautiful. It's such a great experience. And there's moments on this record where no idea would have gone that way. But for me, on this record, a very set thing. I just have a couple of, 3 or 4 sheets of paper as safety, so that I was always singing something. And to train my brain to sing words, not anytime I wanted, I needed to just go into ideas, Sometimes I'm feeling like a flower in the bottom of the well. It doesn't matter. Just be able to go. Just be able to go. Go. Don't edit. Don't tell yourself you don't have it. Just go. And so I get behind the microphone. I would just bang around. Sometimes it's just me and an engineer. And sometimes I say, hey, can you turn me down? Which means, like, turn me down in there so you can't hear me. The track, what's going on, and I hear it. And he'd say, okay, text me when you're ready. Text me when you're done. And I'd go for an hour and a half, and I would just keep going. The freedom to keep going, without having to think about someone else hearing it. And I just keep going until I kind of was able to put 2 puzzle pieces together and go, oh, that's an interesting way to go. Keep going. And then once I had like a little piece of the puzzle, it was time to turn the thing back up and we'd go to work on this piece. And when it came very quickly. I remember Shadow Days on the good man, B over F. chart. I'm a good man with a good heart. Like, can I get away with saying that? You have to write some verses to explain why you figured that out. You can say that. Because everyone should be able to say that if they want. Right? I don't think people say it enough. You know, everybody's just, it's just so, everything's just so combative. I'm an all right guy. And here's why I realized that you would think that that was a weird thing to say. And that was a hugely cathartic. That was like the third or fourth song. And I wrote Speak For Me. And I wrote, it was just going bam, bam, bam. And I was on this thing where every song I wrote gave me the confidence to write the next one. And I listened, but I just heard that song, there's just so much like innocence, which I love. I love that you can actually regrow innocence. That's pretty cool. That's all right. I like
It's hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
It is.
But you can regrow innocence. And this record came out of a brand new sort of feeling of innocence. I wasn't, that is like, you know, you get hit in the face really hard, you stop. You kind of stop your jacket. And all these sort of really overreaching aspects of personality that I wanted to be, that I had added in. It was sort of like software that it just instead of being like version 2.0, it was just like 1.8, 0.7, 0.5, 0.3. It was like, kept trying to recode the same piece of software, but the software had to change. And it got to a point where it ultimately hit the wall, and I said really stupid stuff and really out of touch. All those, you'd be surprised how many of those clever things you want to do just split on you. They just leave. They go, well, have a nice life. And all these things you wanted to be, and all these things you thought were kind of cool to kind of shuffle around in, are gone.
Yeah.
And now you're left with you. And that's scary. The last man standing who has to sit there and deal with it is you. And what I think what the reboot is and the innocence is going, okay, like this is like a hairless cat right now, and we got to kind of start again. All right, let's start again. You're not going to win tomorrow. Because everything on Twitter was like, how do I write something that saves this one thing I wrote that some people were scratching their head about? How do I get out of this hole? And I had gotten really addicted to doubling down and getting out of the hole. And we all do it. You write one thing on Twitter. I mean, maybe you have to have like a certain number of followers. I don't know. I assume we're all musical celebrities now. Know your audience, man. You send a message out, and then it gets turned around a little bit. People go, I don't think you did it. And you go, oh no, I just meant X. And they go, ha. And it's this game of tightrope walking. And sometimes when you make it across the tightrope, you're like, I didn't have any fun. You know, and so it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And those things are fine if you're not in a situation where you have to pay attention to yourself, to be honest. And so when all that stuff got stripped away, like boom, you go, well, you're not going to win this tomorrow. You're not going to blog it. You're not going to tweet it. You're just going to have to live through this. And slowly, the record is really this sort of reconstruction, starting from just the seed of being a person and regrowing. Instead of I'm a person, these are my rituals, these are my rationalizations, these are my defenses, these are my ways to throw you off. It was like, you're not throwing people off. You don't know what you're doing. You're not a mastermind if you're lost. Admit it. But you can't admit it when you're that lost. You need someone to get eaten by bears.
You know, you use the analogy of getting hit in the face. Like, when you get punched in the face, you're startled.
You're startled.
Was there a particular point where that metaphorical punch in the face occurs to you, where you know, whoa, I just woke up?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't take long. The energy. I'm okay. I'm actually kind of feeling okay about it. The energy that comes racing at you. I mean, it's like a tidal wave of, I don't know if I'd call it negativity, because I was kind of a tidal wave of negativity, but whatever that thing is where polarity reverses and all these people's thoughts come at you and you realize it's so much energy that your body can't take. It's so much energy. When those interviews came out, it was just like, if you had given me 5 seconds of that feeling after the interview came out, I would have figured it out. I would have figured it out 5 seconds. But I didn't figure it out before that feeling. So I couldn't rationalize and say, I only need 5 seconds every time. You can't say that. You can't choose your punishment. You know what I mean? That's just still being controlled. That's still being a control freak. So I said to myself, look, whenever this is over, whenever this cloud passes over, that's not up to you. You're not going to control freak. Only thing you control is how you feel and how you write, and just go back to that. Your original win is the best win of your life. You were given a record contract. You were given notoriety for what you do as a musician. I understand how you could have thought, well, what else? But there's nothing else as good as that. And I was left with looking at that, and that didn't leave. You know, the ability to write, like, that was still there. And I said, kind of like, I'm sorry that I left you, or I'm sorry that I took you for granted, it's never happening again. And that gift believed me, I guess, and really opened up this record. I mean, this record is, I have a hard time speaking honestly about this record because it just sounds like I'm full of myself, but I speak about it in a very removed way. It's a lovely, it's a beautiful, it's just beautiful.
Let's hear the opening track, track 1, Josh, which is also a great track and also one of my favorites, Queen of California.
Have you guys heard the whole thing?
Yes.
Let's hear it. Let's hear the whole thing.
The third verse sounds all right. We did it. Third verse sounds good.
You know, I'm a sucker for those really nice, smooth slide guitar referencing Queen.
Yeah, that's Greg Lee's there playing.
Yeah. Who's played here a few times on our stage.
It's just incredible.
Really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Why did you pick that song as the opening track?
It just has such an inviting thing to it.
Yeah.
I also like jamming on it. It just sort of says this is how it's going to be. You never know what you're going to get out of this. This is not about cutting things down to 250 or 320. It's okay to play for a while.
Yeah,
Everybody
you
wants
it nicely.
everybody wants to cut it to a certain number, but nobody can tell you what happens if you don't. Nobody can tell you like, because everybody's always cut it. Everybody said it's got to be under 330, and you go, well, why? What happens after 330? So I think this is actually huge credit to Columbia Records. I'm so proud to be a Columbia Records artist. I put their name as big as I can put it on records and stuff. They have agreed to let this be the second single. So I think that as long as you haven't written any potent #1 pop hits, at least give people something that they might like in a way that, like I said, if you're not going to sell it to 1 million people, sell it to 100,000 people who feel 10 times more about it than anything else. And it's going to be very interesting to see when that fade out is going to be. I think we should put 3 different versions and like name them based on how cool the radio DJ would be. Like awesome programming director version, full video. Dude's got obligations. Half of the jam. Dude is scared for his job. Make them have to choose.
What track would you choose for the next one? I'll let you pick something that you want to talk about.
There's always a moment at the end of a record creation where you're just like the song, you just write songs like it's nothing. Where at the beginning of another record, you just don't remember how to do it. You just don't remember the geometry of everything leaves. And you have to fight to get it back. Like I'm working on another record now, and we're going to do another record in, we're going to put another record out pretty soon. Well, Columbia, just forget about that right now. What else do I have to do, man? If your artist is saying he can write songs, like, yeah, he can write songs. So it's very difficult to start again now. I mean, I'm starting again to write songs, and it's like, you think that if you wrote a great song last May, then you're going to be able to know how to do that, and it leaves like that.
But isn't it, if you start so quickly, like you are now, isn't there a risk that the songs that you write can just become an extension of what you did on?
I don't think that's a risk. I think that's perfect.
Right.
I think I do want to do that. And the song that I want to play for you is a song that I never could have written in the first 5, 10, 15. There were a lot of songs written for this record. It was one of the hardest pruning processes.
How many direct?
There's probably 20 songs. probably 20 songs.
And there's 13 on here.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of tunes. And there were some that I was so married to, and no one else liked them. There's a song called Helpless, and I was the only person who thought that was the coolest thing. And I started to realize, oh, this just happened to me where I think this thing is cool and no one else does. Who's out there? Don, to his just incredible credit, heard me out when there were songs that he knew could have been really big on the radio, and I said that it just doesn't fit the scope. As soon as you put a big radio song on this record, then everything else feels small. This record has a very set dynamic range, so that when you put it on, it may take you 2 minutes to realize that that's how this record goes. But at no other time in the record does that get broken. So it's a really just a consistent record. This song is called If I Ever Get Around to Living, and it represents this freaky end of the record thing where I was just like, give me another one, all right, another one. And it's like I was listening to, playing a rousing game of Jenga one night, listening to Good in Ships by Clive Davis Theater. And there's something about the way these guys used to write suites, where they go from one thing to another thing, doing these scene changes. So I had this song works in 3 pieces. The first part I'd had, If I Ever Get Around to Living, it really said something that would be very important to me. I thought, where does this thing go? And the next day came in and added a second part, and the next day came in and went, can I really get away with this? And added a third part. It works in 3 parts, and this is where I think Who Says was the song on Battle Studies that sort of opened up, and Born and Raised came out of it. If I Ever Get Around to Living is sort of the song on this that's going to open up and take to the next record. So, and I want to hear the whole thing. So.
So how are you going to handle that? What's the deal? How long do you have to go without performing?
Well, you know, I can see this as a prison sentence.
That's right.
Field trip.
Yeah.
Field trip. I thought about this for a while. Because the moment I decide that it's time to get the surgery, you still have to count down probably 16 months.
Really?
So yeah, so it's like a prison break with a long river. Yeah. So I got the surgery. The first surgery I got just a couple days after my birthday, and I didn't really start being able to sing. There was a window of time I could sing, and I basically sang out this record to finish it up. So to go right back into another surgery is just really crazy. It would throw me out of sorts. So I figured, let me just write a record while I'm 34. I don't want to lose the year to all recovery. So I'm kind of in this really beautiful place. I don't know. I mean, putting a record out without promotion, extremely uncomfortable. On stage, in front of people, not playing and talking. I haven't talked in 2 years, and if I had my way, I'd just never talk. But I really would like it. But I'm in a really beautiful place right now where I just kind of float, I kind of float for a minute. And maybe there's something to be written about, heard, seen, met. I don't know. Because I hope that every other record I put out I can tour it.
Yeah,
but the first recovery, I wanted to go out so badly. There's a moment in California that's like my favorite guitar lick. It's like and there are nights in my room I would just grab my head, play guitar in the mirror, play that grip, hoping that standing out on stage. I got right back again. You'll talk about a reboot. There's a guy playing guitar in his room in the mirror, then he was on stage, waiting for his after. So that's a kind of a beautiful thing to be that vital, even if part of that vitality is caused by not being able to do what you love doing. There's something, man, like, I was 28 for 4 years till I was 34. Something happened where, I know it sounds really corny, but like I just feel like this just capacity to love more, just to be happier. And now it's just about, okay, I can't be happy this way, but what are the ways I can be happy? And so like, hang out at my house out in Montana, I write songs, and
Montana.
yeah,
That's a beautiful but it's a long way from New York City and Los Angeles.
That's
So
its charm.
So what's your day like?
Well, right now we're setting up the studio, and there's also stuff to be done. You know, like I said, everybody wants to do the right thing for this record. It's very a lot of great people are taxed trying to figure out how can they do the best job. I think the fear is that this record comes and goes without its fair share.
Well, there's a risk.
Yeah. So there is a risk. So you know, there's everybody wants to do as much as we can do. So you know, I always take to artwork because I feel like artwork will save the day. I don't know why. That's kind of where I go. It's like, well, we'll graphic design the shit out of it. So I go up to the studio and you know we're setting up the studio, so I have to be sure to actually write songs as part of that time too. If you want to, you can just keep saying, well, we're not set up yet. But you could have said that if you didn't have a record deal, you could say, I'm not set up yet. You can say, I don't have the microphone I want yet, or I don't have a band yet. And it's very important to wake up and write. So I wake up and I write, and we go up to the studio, and I cook dinner and hang out, and I'm just sort of like, it's very incredible to wake up happy and go to bed happy without any break-ins throughout the day.
Do you read a lot?
I fall asleep when I read. I don't read. I fall asleep. Not obviously not because of the time. There's one book I read a lot, and I wrote just sick emails when I wasn't talking. Just the best emails. For me to read. So yeah, you didn't want to have to respond in kind to those emails. They were deep. But you know, we took trips. I'm a person like that. We went on a road trip, and my friends were there for me. And we just can't stop enjoying life. You can't. You can't stop enjoying. You have to be happy. And I think it's cool to not be happy in your 20s, be angsty. That's where you're supposed to get stuff set up. But then how much of your life is going to be set up, and how much of your life is going to be just living in the setup? And so that's the if I ever get around to living thing. And the end of those, the letter to myself, you are hiding in your mind. You know, like trying to make it better than you got it. You are spending all your time searching for a sign that's never going to look the way you want. When are you going to wise up? I mean, I remember 2 days after I wrote that, listening to it back on the iPod, driving across the bridge to Brooklyn and looking up at the sky and going, this is really something very special. You know? And I just, in a way, by not going on tour, and I have to look at this place, nothing more than that, I get to stay in this mindset of being creative. Because when you go on tour, you have to be everything becomes very grid-like. You know, you have to get to the next place, to the next place. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the very few interviews I'll be doing, so I don't really necessarily have to put on a thick skin. I'd just rather have a thin skin, feel sick to my stomach for a half an hour, and stay sensitive. My biggest problem was when I decided to build defense to being sensitive, and I never said, wow, this really makes me feel uncomfortable. I said, John Mayer doesn't get uncomfortable. He will create whatever return force field or return energy field to meet this thing halfway so he doesn't feel uncomfortable, even if he's not behaving the way he wants to, you know? And so now I go like, I get to stay a writer. I don't have to get poked and prodded too much longer, although you're very sensitive, Tyler, so I will tell you. And the thing is, I'll get the surgery later on. Actually, I have some very cool recording projects that the talk about coming out.
I was going to ask you about this. So, I mean, it's a lot of time now.
Yeah, down there doing a record with a very cool artist. I won't give away anything yet. It's not my gig.
Yeah.
But Pino's in the band, and it's a very cool band. So the guitar playing side is going to come out, and I'll get the surgery later on in probably September, October, and then hit the road this time next year. But before then, you know, what if I come out with another record, and by the time I hit the stage this time next year, I'm playing 2 records, right? And then you can look back and say, oh, we didn't miss any time. We missed some shows. Right. It's okay to miss shows. It's not okay to miss being able to write songs you'll only be able to write at that time in your life. And I think you have to take a minute. The 30s are where you figure it out before you owe people. Like, I respect, you know, at some point, pretty soon, start, you know, having an interdependent relationship with somebody. And that's I finally figured out how to do it. I did a lot of homework, man. to put my skills to the test. But before that, like, I think in your 30s, it's the sort of confluence of having something to say and knowing how to say it. You know, you might learn how to say it before you have something to say, and you might have something to say after you've forgotten how to say it. So I'm still sharp as a writer, and I now have another layer of depth that I can get to. And I don't want to give that year up to not speaking or not being able to write. Right. So I need to keep my 30s where I really do my best work, so that, you know, later on down the line, when I think, and I hope it never happens, but as an insurance policy, if that sort of spirit leaves me, I'll have as much music as possible to draw on and look back on my life and play for people, historically.
Yeah. Let's listen to one last track. I think maybe the one to listen to would be the title track, Born and Raised, track
cool.
number 6. I think that would make the most sense. So, Josh, let's hear Born and Raised. This record now maybe 5 or 6 times easy again. I'm really impressed. I mean this with the emotional depth, the lyrics, the honesty. You know, a lot of records they have a false honesty. You can tell. At least I can't have this music a long time. Yeah, you go through that. You do go through that. But it's a great record, and I'm really impressed. I think you and Don work beautifully together. Don's here. I don't know.
I had meetings scheduled with producers, and Don was the first guy that I met in a day where I think I had to meet 2 other people, and I canceled it. Here's a story about Don, and I'll see him in a minute. And before Don and I met, I've been working at like the whole hat thing. I kind of just want to hide under it. Like, I'll be honest, I need something to hide under it. Makes like I need a totem of some sort. If the hat stops spinning, I'm not a tree. It's ridiculous. But I was like, God, I kind of like this vibe, you know. So I like reached out, like searched for like, you know, you're like, where's the hat? Where's the? And I finally found a guy in Burbank, who's like the guy. And it took a really long time to get him to make one, but it turned out that I met Don's hat is made by the guy. So Don is the original guy with the hat. So one day, this guy's not making me the hat, and I put the money through already. I was like, I'm just gonna go visit him and be like, I'm just gonna stop by. Maybe I can kind of push the hat together. So I go in there, and he's like, we've got one hat that would fit you that I can make for you. And he points to it, it's the same color as Don's hat. So he makes it up for me, and I was like, I really want a different color than Don's hat, because I think we'll be spending a lot of time together. People, however, I defer to him as being the original hat guy. So it was very uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable wearing the hat around Don that I went back to the guy how to make me a different hat that I only wear around Don. Brown hat that I only wear on days I'll see Don. I did not bring the brown hat to Los Angeles, but Don, I assure you, if I had, it would be on my head.
Well, hats, great records, great hats.
Great hats.
Yeah. So look, I really want to thank you on behalf of the GRAMMY Museum. You said you're not doing a whole lot of interviews. We really appreciate you coming here tonight.
Well, I appreciate it.
Half the day hanging out outside. Is there one person here from Australia? Who's the one person from Australia? Is there someone here?
Awesome.
That's not Australia. Are you from Australia? Are you really from Australia?
I'm from Australia. I flew in this morning.
Oh.
The thing I keep thinking is, like, you take any artist you like, and they might not have done something for like 6 or 8 months, but it didn't feel like anything. I just hope that it doesn't feel like much by the time they get on stage. There's a ton of artists who aren't working right now that as soon as they come back and go, oh great. I'm hoping that by the time I get back to Australia, it feels like a much shorter period of time. Time is very forgiving, I think. So I'm hoping to be on the forgiving side of time and end up on stage. And man, I just can't imagine a year from now
Yeah.
open it up, California, wherever it is we're playing.
Well, we hope it's a whole lot sooner rather than later. We
Thank
wish you
you.
best of luck with the surgery once it comes. And
Whatever it
we
takes.
can't wait. You want to come back and play that new record? We'll be happy to have you right here, too.
I will be here.